Welcome to the Purposely Aligned Entrepreneur Podcast presented by Boss Girl Creative. This is episode number 471. Today I'm talking about how to become more visible in your brand. Now let's dive in. Have you already found business success but feel lonely at the top? Or do you feel like you're at a place in your business where others just don't get it? Or maybe you feel like you have to make yourself smaller in order for others to not feel less than. Or maybe just a little bit of all three. But with all that said, there is good news because I've been there and I see you, sister. I'm Taylor Bradford, the torchbearer of this podcast and sisterhood, and I'm here to lead and inspire you to stay purposely aligned in the success you have found and provide you with support, guidance, and a sisterhood to keep going. Because I do get it. Your business journey isn't meant to be traveled alone. So grab a notebook, your favorite pen, and a bevy, and let's dive into this together with this latest podcast episode. Welcome to the Purposely Aligned Entrepreneur Podcast presented by Boss Girl Creative and me. Hello, welcome to episode 471. I'm your host, Taylor Bradford. Thank you so much for tuning in. So today is a little unique because I'm actually recording at my warehouse and I don't usually record here. Actually, I've never recorded here. I usually record in my closet at home, but circumstances today required me to be up at my warehouse, and this is the best spot that I have. I actually have a couple of rooms, but right now I have a refrigerator that sounds possessed. The electronics, the beeping is nutty and there's no controlling it. So I couldn't record in a much smaller confined space. So I have tucked myself in between two shelves full of pillows. I've strung up a moving blanket and connected it to a rolling rack. But we are close to a very busy road and semi-traffic is on that road all the time. And anyways, you're probably going to hear that in this episode, so please bear with me. Today, we're diving into why visibility matters in your brand and how to think about visibility and how to be more social and get your brand out in front of more eyeballs. Because at the end of the day, while loyalty does help you, if you happen to be in an industry or a niche where one-offs are more frequent than loyal customers, then this episode is very, very important. But I also want to say that while loyalty is super important as a business, it's not what drives most revenue. And I know that having a loyalty program is important to support and nurture those loyal customers. But at the end of the day, your revenue, your sales drivers are going to be new customers. And that's regardless of what industry or niche that you are in. So this is why visibility absolutely matters. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of this episode, let's find out what's been going on in the land of social media. Social media headline number one, Instagram is testing new ads overlaid on top of users' stories. Another disruptive ad format in testing at Instagram. Oh my gosh, I'm going to be so annoyed if that is truly what rolls out with Instagram. Social media headline number two, likes are now private on X. You no longer need to worry about people looking up your likes on the platform. And that wraps up this week's social media headlines. So let's talk about brand visibility. Ultimately, you getting your brand out in front of eyeballs is what it means to be visible. And if we look at all the big brands of the world, that is a constant motion that is in motion for them. But visibility doesn't really matter if you haven't actually done the inner works of your brand. And that means what your purpose is, what your why is, who your ideal customer is. Like all of that truly matters before you try to make your brand visible. The whole goal of your brand is for you to own a specific place within people's minds that you reinforce through your actual visibility. So if you're not clear on what you stand for, who you're working with, or who you're trying to work for, then none of that matters. So I'm going to encourage you to work on those pieces before you start trying to become more visible, because it won't matter. Like your efforts will not pay off if you are unclear as to who you serve and why you serve them. So once you've done the work, now let's figure out how to be more consistently visible. I mean, think about in the US, PB&J goes together. Like when you think of peanut butter, most of the time you're going to think of jelly. That pairing has just been seared into our minds through years and years and years of peanut butter showing up. And a lot of times it starts when we were kids. Like our parents would make us peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and that would be part of lunch, or that would just be attached to a core memory. And that is what it means to be visible with your brand. And after you've done the work, because the work has to happen before the visibility. Peanut butter didn't become a playmate with jelly for a really long time until it was consistently paired together over and over and over. So we got to be like PB&J. That is important for our brands. We have to be like PB&J because repeated exposure of our brands to someone is powerful. Like that is how they latch on to what it is that we do. Also, I want to remind you that just because your brand isn't something that someone needs right now, someone else is looking for your brand. So staying top of mind with your brand is very important because you never know who is actually looking for your solution. So imagine being in a crowded party. You're in the middle of a crowded party and you hear your name. Like you hear your name in a conversation. And you perk up because you hear your name in a conversation. This happens because we are conditioned to pay attention to things that we care about. This is important about brand visibility. But it's important to remember that we don't pay attention to most messages until we start caring about a specific thing. And then we're like, oh my gosh, yeah, I remember seeing that thing. Or, oh my gosh, yeah, I remember, so-and-so offers that thing. It's like remembering you have a ballpoint pen in the bottom of your purse or in your backpack. You're like, oh, I've got a pen. When somebody says, hey, do you have a pen? Yeah, I actually have a pen. That is what it means to stay visible with your brand. So here's another thing why visibility and consistent visibility matters. When we encounter a random blog post by somebody we aren't familiar with, we appreciate the content because we were seeking it, but it's quickly forgotten. Like we don't attach that content to a specific person because we haven't been repeated to consistently. So just because we landed on that person's website that one time, we may never remember who that actually was unless it's consistently showing up on our radar. Here's a great example. I am growing banana peppers right now, and I don't like banana peppers just as they are off of the bush that they are grown on. I like pickled banana peppers. And so I went on the hunt for a pickled banana pepper recipe. Now, I'm not attached to the actual person that created the recipe. I'm just looking for the recipe. But if I was consistently looking for things like that, I might become more consistent in me reaching out and being like, oh, that is the go-to person for pickling recipes. Do you see where I'm going with this? So your audience needs repetition so that they start to recognize who you are. And if you can guess from the theme of all of this being, visible, it's what I'm talking about. Consistent visibility is a key to making this happen. But let's talk about where visibility goes wrong. Just plastering your logo all over the place, that's not the way you become visible. That will actually attach negative emotions to your business, to your brand. So let's not go down that road. So it's not just about being seen, it's being noticed. So if you're ever in a sports arena or you're at your local high school baseball game and you notice brands that have put their logos out on the fence, that is being seen. That is not being noticed. Like, you don't have any background on who those people are. You just see their logos. We do some of that kind of marketing. We choose with our roofing business to show up on the baseball calendar for the local high school and the football calendar. But that's just being seen. That's not being noticed. We also advertise in a magazine in a very large gated community over in a neighboring town. And we've been marketing in their magazine since, I think, December. And what's interesting about that is we're actually right next to the table of contents, which would be a very visible place to be next to the table of contents. And we have a customer in there that we didn't get through that magazine, but he noticed us for the first time in the magazine this month. How powerful is that? He has received this magazine since December. We've been in it since December, and he just noticed us in there this month in June as I'm recording this episode. But we were already hired. He hired us based on a neighbor referral. But now that he has a magazine and he sees us in the magazine, he has made a stronger connection to who we are. And he's now using that magazine to show his friends, hey, this is the company you need to hire. This is the company that has helped me get X, Y, and Z. So being seen and being noticed are two completely different things. It's important to set yourself up to be seen so that you can be noticed. But again, it takes time for you to be noticed. And now that our customer knows that we are people behind the brand, it has created such a stronger connection for us because people want to buy from people. And we need brand experiences that are surprising or aspirational or heartwarming or insightful or useful. Anything but boring or predictable, because people buy from people. And now our customer is armed with feelings attached to our name. Now I get it. I know that there's a million things that we all could be doing to better, move our businesses forward. And time is usually one of the factors where we're like, oh my gosh, I only have this much time. How do I get the best return on my time by doing certain activities in my business that are going to propel me forward? And that really becomes the issue with visibility for most people. Lack of time and competing priorities. We have a million ideas and tasks vying for our attention, which totally sucks because in order to get sales to grow, we have to be consistently visible. And some of that's attached to perfectionism, which that's mindset work, and you need to work on that. Sometimes I struggle with that. Sometimes I don't. Depends on where my mood is. But at the end of the day, we do have to make being visible a priority in our business. So I want you to consider these things when you're thinking about the importance of how do you stay consistently visible. Where are your customers hanging out? Pick a platform where they are hanging out and show up consistently there. And then figure out what your end game is with visibility. Is it to get more clients? Is it to sell more courses? Is it you have to figure out what the end game is. That way, when you are showing up and being visible as a brand, you know what the ultimate goal is. You can't just show up and hope people do something. Like, you need to be goal driven behind your visibility work. Like, going viral on Instagram is great, but if there's nothing attached to that virility, then you literally went viral for nothing. So use whatever your goal is to be your driver for the thing that you're being visible on. So if you do by chance go viral on a social media platform, you're driving traffic into your email newsletter list. Like, let's think about, like, what is your funnel doing? And how are you getting people into your funnel? Because at the end of the day, we are trying to make money. So let's figure out how to be more visible so that that happens. So I hope all of this gives you food for thought. I am going to cut this one as a short and sweet episode because of where I'm recording and I can hear all the semi-traffic behind me. It's driving me batty. So please work with me through this episode. It's short and sweet and to the point. But let's work on getting more visibility in our brands, but with targeted goals in mind. Showing up, plastering your logo everywhere is not the end all be all. You actually need to have some kind of driver behind that. And it's way more important to be noticed than just to be seen. So get yourself seen, but put some oomph behind it so that you get noticed. Create some kind of emotional tie to your business, to your brand, and then you're going to be golden. And then it's just all about staying consistent. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope you found it valuable. And until next time, I hope you have a great rest of your week. Oh, wait, before I go, thank you truly for your support of my own business journey and this podcast, The Purposely Aligned Entrepreneur. If you know another entrepreneur who is in the same business trenches, who has already found success but might be feeling a bit lonely in their journey, my hope is that you'll share this podcast and this sisterhood with them. Because this, what we do day in and day out, isn't meant to be done alone. Speaking of lonely, if you're ready to squash the business journey loneliness, stop what you're doing right now and join the sisterhood. Visit bossgirlcreative.com/sisterhood. I can't wait to see you in there.